Do we have viewers on? Thank you for coming back to us. We okay. Well,
we have 0 people online. That's awkward.
They'll start here second.
Let's see if I have
Okay. Thanks for rejoining us. Sorry for the technical difficulty. Apparently, we had a kid setting set up, and that was blocking the ability to put in comments or ask questions. So that was going to be a long time to talk about Sauvignon Blanc without anybody's questions. Last week, I managed to talk so much that we didn't take very many questions. So we're hoping you guys have great questions this week, and we'll get deeper into those and actually taste the wine, which is cool. It's something that we missed last week. I think there's a couple more people joining us. And Tom is nodding his head over there. Master of the Universe says he's
We can go back to music.
You want to go back to music? We'll go back to music for a quick minute. Let's see what we have.
Did we tell people how to go find us, Tom? Like, we had people. Now we don't have people.
Just people are loading back up again.
Cool.
Just music while we wait. It's also a music show as much as it is about wine. So if you have any music requests for next week, send them in.
Yeah, we decided to use Carl Weston's photo of California cows here as a social spacing measure. So it's 6 foot long painting or photo and frame. So Carey and I are appropriately spaced this week, which is nice. Mom, you'll be having a very cool photo of 1962 cows. That are relaxing in the beautiful outdoor sunshine, and we thought it was a nice thing. They're socially spacing, some of them. Farm Road and sky breaking open there.
I just got a message from my dad that we are in, so I'm assuming we've got some people watching, Tom?
Nice.
Okay, we've got some people watching. That's good. Hopefully we didn't miss too many people with the...
Carey's folks, I just want to say, Carey's going to do that. We're distantly spaced. Carey did such a great job last week with all that and getting all this stuff organized. So we're excited to have you on board.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us. Happy birthday to Mom.
Oh yeah, happy birthday, Mom.
Yeah.
Special quarantine birthday.
Well, what we're going to be talking about this week is the Turnbull 2019 Josephine. So a new release that's just what we released this a week ago or something like that.
A couple weeks ago, yeah.
And we were so delighted and honored to have Karen McNeil live stream a tasting of this awesome Super Sauvignon, along with Rudd's delicious offering and also Spotswood's last week on Thursday. So you can check out Karen McNeil on her website, I suppose. I think she streamed it on Facebook, perhaps?
She streamed on Instagram. So she saved the tasting on Instagram. It's on IGTV. So if you go to her Instagram page at Karen McNeil Co. And go to the TV icon above her pictures. That's where you can find it. Or if you'd like to just read more about, some of her reviews or read some of the really great articles that they have. She's the author of the Wine Bible, and it's on Windspeed.com. That's her website, and it's free. So go head over there maybe after this tasting just to learn even more about wine.
Yeah, the Windspeed blog is actually really cool. We obviously are steeped in wine information all the time and wine culture and seeing things from other wineries. And it's one of the few blogs that I actually read all the way through and learn all kinds of things from. So Karen's a font of information about different wine regions, and there's fun quizzes and lots of ways to interact with wine knowledge. And I can't remember the week that I didn't learn about a new producer or see an interesting interview with someone that's awesome and doing cool work, or learning about a new grape variety or an ancient tradition of wine somewhere. It's really worth it, which is nice, but not because we're fans of hers, and she's not fans of ours because we're fans of hers. Just mutually agreeable about how good things are. And she did review or taste and recommend the 2019 Josephine. And we're really honored and humbled to have someone like the wine, including you. As I often say and said last week, my team are in the vineyard and the cellar, and myself. We don't get to make wine grow awesome grapes in the heart of the Napa Valley without people enjoying them and checking them out. So it's a world of fantastic wines out there. We just want to be one of them in your hearts. So the 2019 Josephine is a super special bottling of Sauvignon Blanc. Great for a nice spring day. So, some of you, of course, it's starting to be evening where you're watching, or even deep evening. But here in California, it's 4 o'clock. The sun is actually kind of breaking out of its gloom today. There's a nice blue sky. We were talking about doing this in the garden, but it looked threatening when we were setting up a half hour ago. So we're here in the private tasting room at Turnbull. We've got Carey, Marvin again, and Tom Mendes is handling the computer. He's going to be sending your cool questions my way so that I can answer them. But we've got the patio right outside, and it's beautiful. We're looking out across the state vineyards. It's funny for us too, or odd and strange, but hopefully these videos bring us a little bit closer together and give us something to divert ourselves. Carey and I were talking about it last week for a whole hour. I completely forgot that this virus thing was going on.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point of these, is just to kind of give us all something to look forward to, because I know I personally I build a list in my head of the exciting things, like leaving the house. Today I get to go on a walk, or last night I went to Target for the first time in weeks to stock up on groceries that I desperately needed, and apparently things I was missing from my house, because you start to notice those things when you're sitting at home all day. So that was exciting. But these tastings are probably the highlight, I think, of at least my week coming into work. I miss it, Gary.
We need you to come in, so thanks for doing that.
Thank you for making the wine.
The 19 Josephine is just exciting. We for some of you, you'll find, and especially in these times, I suppose, we make two different Sauvignon Blancs. There's one that's out in the world that's $24 or something. It's fantastic. It's got a screw cap on it. It's also estate grown. Also made with our own hands in our own cellar with our own love. And it's the one that you'll find in your local bottle shop, or if you've got a restaurant nearby that's doing takeout, that would be the wine that you probably find out in the world. The Josephine is something that we offer just from the cellar door, which you can't come to right now. But cellar team, vineyard team are still here. We're making wine, growing grapes, and getting ready for the next vintage. So they're both fantastic wines, topped Oakville Estate Sauvignon Blanc. This is the Josephine, has a cork in it. So if you're opening a bottle of Turnbull Sauvignon Blanc, you can tell which one it is, whether it has a screw cap or a cork. That'll help differentiate it. And then the Josephine, of course, says Josephine on it. And so they are two different cuvées, but both from estate-grown fruit in Oakville. We have two different vineyards that we have Sauvignon Blanc on. There's the Turnbull Home Vineyard, where many of you have visited at the State Winery. And that is where most of the Sauvignon Blanc that we grow is. There are 3.5 acres of Sauvignon Blanc on this property. Most of it was planted 29 and 32 years ago. So they're old plantings that are, they've dug in deep. The roots go deep into the aquifer here, or the soil profile. And the magic of this site is that we have a relatively high water table. So somewhat like what the predicament or excitement of Bordeaux is that the water table in the winter rises up, rots off the seed from the wines, because the vines do struggle in that soil strata that's now dewatered. That seems to be the same thing that happens at the Turnbull Home Vineyard. And so we have old vines that have deep roots, but the deep roots are left high and dry in the summer months. And so we get concentration and intensity in the flavors of the grapes. One of the really remarkable stories of Turnbull is, since we are family owned and the family understands the importance of making the best produce from our lands, just like if you were farming in your backyard, to put the tomatoes in the sunny spot and the leaf lettuces in the shady spot. When we farm, we don't think about what is the best return monetarily, but what is the highest quality grape variety that we can be growing in every spot. And so we've tuned that up. Here we grow Sauvignon Blanc in the soil. It's perfect for that. The cool morning fog comes up the valley, up the river, and blankets in the valley floor of Oakville and cools off the morning. And then in the afternoon, that drifts away, burns off, and you get nice opulence of sun. So you have kind of that yin and yang of cool, hot, daytime, nighttime and that goes on throughout the growing season. So that all swirls up with these old vines to make Sauvignon Blanc that's really fantastic. And then we have a small patch of about 1.25 acres of Sauvignon Blanc over at our famous Fortuna Vineyard that's on the opposite side of the valley, on the alluvial fan at the base of the Oakville Bench. And that Sauvignon Blanc is also fantastic. It's about the same age. The soil strata there is a little bit different. It's rockier, gravelier, and it's more permeable, and there's not really a standing water table there in the winter. So those vines struggle a little bit more. The yield on those vines is a little bit lower, and you have kind of more natural fruit density to the wines that come out of Fortuna. And at the Turnbull Home Ranch, you have a little bit more vibrancy and verve. So the Josephine in 2019 is something like 72%, 75%. I wrote it down somewhere, but I've dropped it on the floor. So it's 70+% from the Fortuna Vineyard, and the balance of the cuvee comes from the Turnbull Home Ranch. Whereas the wholesale Sauvignon Blanc with the screw cap is something like 90% from the Turnbull Home Ranch and about 10% from the Fortuna site. But the sites do different things. I don't think of one of them as better than the other one all the time. It tends to be that the unctuous, texture-driven wines that we get out of Fortuna are more appropriate for Josephine, and the focused fusion and aromatic drive of the Turnbull site is better for the wholesale wine that's out in the world in your favorite bottle shop. But there have been vintages where the Josephine comes entirely from the Turnbull home site, and all the Fortuna fruit goes into the bottling that's out in your local bottle shop. So I haven't. We do in our red grape growing. I do have vineyard blocks that I know are destined for black label. I can feel it. I can taste it. I'm thinking about that the whole time we're going through the growing season, and then lo and behold, that happens. And there are other blocks that are destined for Leopoldina Cab or Fortuna Cab, and year after year after year they do that. The Sauvignon Blanc seems to be more vintage dependent, and more the winemaking, since we're working in both these bottlings, and with the Josephine, we are working with 100% Sauvignon Blanc. And so there's not, my goal as a winemaker is to try to create layers and nuance in that, but I don't have Cabernet Franc or Merlot or Petit Verdot or Malbec to blend in. We're not using a diversity of different coopers that have different forests or toasting levels to try to help create nuance and layers. And so the Josephine, kind of a cool story. The Josephine is really born out of, we have a set of these amazing clay amphoras made by the Manetti family in Tuscany. The Manetti family owns the famous Tuscan producer Fontoti, and my family and I were over there. I don't know, now it was maybe 10 years ago or something. It was summertime, and we stopped by the Fontoti winery and doing a tasting. And we were welcomed down to, once they're still friendly, and once they knew that we grew grapes and loved wine, we were invited to come down into the cellar and see what their processes were. And I have pretty much zero Italian, and a little bit of Spanish, so I'm able to understand a hair. But the idea was that they were pressing grapes, and it was June, and which would be unusual to Sangiovese growing region to have pressing, where you take the skins and squeeze off the juice. 8 months after harvest would have been unusual. I thought it was a translation issue. Maybe they were bottling or doing some other process, racking, but certainly not pressing off grapes. And so we hurry down to the cellar, and there's these Italian guys, and they're tipping these beautiful clay amphoras over on their sides, and whole clusters of Sangiovese on stem are pouring out into a trough and heading off to the press. And it was remarkable. They make a wine called the Dino, which you should absolutely seek out and try. It's named after the great grandfather. Maybe there's too many greats in there, or maybe not enough. That purchased the Fontoti winery 5 or 6 generations ago. But their main business is these clay amphoras. And I thought that, I didn't know that. I thought the amphoras were just beautiful. And I asked where, there must be a store where you can buy these, an enological store, a wine supply store. And Tom, I think, is saying that
I think we need to drink the wine, but
drink some wine.
let's maybe quickly get into the wine.
Yeah.
And then I want to hear more about the amphora because it's probably the most,
Sure.
yeah,
Sounds
the
good.
clay amphora in our winemaking program. But I do know some feedback from last week's tasting was, I guess I looked a little
Ready to drink.
ready to drink.
I was ready to drink the whole time, and hopefully you are too. Some of you hopefully have Josephine in your glasses, and some of you have a cocktail or whatever you're drinking. We're drinking along with you. So cheers to you. And from a
Cheers.
distance, look at, we
Cheers.
can't even reach each other. Solid 6 feet. And so this is the 19 Josephine. And those, the amphora that we were just talking about, and we're going to get back to, they create, and I don't know how this works. I'm not a scientist, but when you see it, the aromatics here are all about the amphora to me. There's a white floral lift that's just beautiful and fleeting, and you can't quite put your finger on it. And that's the hallmark of the amphora. And so when I smell this wine, there's melon tones, like honeydew melon, Meyer lemon zest, and then there's this fleeting white floral note. Tom has his finger up. That means something. I think he's like swirling it around. He's saying, whoop-de-doo.
We have some questions on both the amount of concrete and the amount of
Okay, I'm going to grab my note real quick because it details all this stuff. Okay, so the amount of amphora in this wine, 19%, 52% concrete tank, and 29% French oak barrels. So that I think pretty much adds up to 100%, but sometimes we overachieve. So if that adds up to 101, that's because we won. But the amphora is really all about the aromatics, and that's what I love about fermenting an amphora. Is it creates, and for reasons unknown to me, they had a little piece of like pressed Edelweiss in it next to her wall telephone when I was a kid, and I was like kind of fascinated by this little piece of Edelweiss. And I have no idea what Edelweiss smells like because this piece was like dried out and pressed in a frame. So, and I've never actually experienced Edelweiss. But I think of it, end of the Sound of Music kind of thing, like this fleeting, like Swiss Alps alpine white flower that like hardly has any aroma at all, but there's something there, and I think that the amphora do that.
Yeah.
So, so when I smell it, I'm engaged. When you taste wine, for me, it's so important. The aromatics lead you into tasting. If you're smelling a wine and you're not interested in drinking the wine, then and this one does. Love the aromatics.
What temperature do you suggest? Do you prefer?
When
you drink it?
The narrow the wine and focus on acidity. But I tend to like white wine colder than most people do. The Josephine that we're tasting actually is like a little bit warmer than I would normally enjoy it at. But I think that where our the Sauvignon Blanc with the screw cap that's on the world, I like that one in an ice bucket. I like it cold and crisp and lean and focused. And the Josephine should be a little bit warmer than that. But that, to me, that's like ice bucket, and you take it out for 10 minutes, and then you're ready to go. Or maybe fridge cold for the Josephine, ice bucket cold for the wholesale Sauvignon Blanc, for my taste. But there's no right answer on this thing. People enjoy things at all different temperature profiles. But the temperature, and you can play around with this. Buy a case of Josephine and then drink it at different temperatures. It's a great idea, right? Yeah. But you can see how much the temperature does change how the wine is. Just like the shape of the glass or the your own personal feeling. So much of like whether we're enjoying something or not enjoying something has to do with what's going on inside ourselves. The wine has to be sufficiently awesome. But a lot of whether you like something or not has to do with, did you get in a fight today with your kid or your spouse, or get a speeding ticket, or you're locked down at home and bored of it. All those things kind of come together to create an interior feeling. Hopefully our wines are something that can like break you out of the mold if things are going sour, or if things are great, then they can uplift you above that too. As you taste this wine, the aromatics bring in the mouthfeel. I think you get a little bit of that oak note. We use very, very seasoned French oak barrel. Sauvignon Blanc, I wouldn't know at all. Mm-hmm. But that said, once you know that, we can discuss those notes. And there's very subtle brown spices and vanilla strands through the wine, but they're super subservient to the fruit density and the fruit lift. So you again have melon. There is like maybe that barrel note's like a little bit of creme brulee as the wine finishes and rounds. But the wine also in the finish has focus and length to it. It's clean on my palate, doesn't leave a residue, but the flavor persists. So I like the juxtaposition of like a relatively wide mint palate here, where there's fruit density and widening, and this little folds together and focuses, and the aromatic amplitude that kind of like dives down, and it all meets at a nice point. And it continues to persist. I've been like flapping my lips and talking, and I haven't had the wine in my mouth for at least a minute. I've moved a whole bunch of air through my mouth and out of my mouth, no virus. And and I still have a persistent taste of the wine that's very pleasant. So, when you have all those pieces come together, the aromatics are like drying into the glass, then all this different stuff going on in the mid palate and this persistent finish, that's an exciting wine.
Peter, can you talk a little bit more about the concrete tanks, then we can get back to him for, because I do think it's a very cool story.
Your
but
wife wants you to talk about the maestro.
The maestro.
Or maestro.
Oh, Giovanni Salvienti.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, son. Buy us a couple of years ago. They're pretty exciting. I've had so much success with them with Josephine and Sauvignon Blanc. We have two of them. One of them went into the Josephine this year, and the other one went into our Sauvignon Blanc that's out in the world. So they're both they're kind of fantastic. It's unlined concrete. Kind of harkens back to the days after Prohibition in the 50s in Napa Valley. There were redwood tanks made out of literally like old growth redwood. Instead of French oak, you would have a wood tank made of redwood, and then you had concrete fermenters that were basically like a dolphin pool. They pour a concrete open top tank and then ferment in that. That it's an old technology. There's nothing modern about concrete. Concrete could sound modern, but it's something that's been around for a long time in winemaking. And I think it was originally designed as like a fairly inexpensive way to make a liquid holding vessel. And so in a tank format, it maintains a very even temperature. So if you put cold juice in, you'll have cold fermentation. It's hard to warm it up. It's hard to cool it down. It does what it does. Our two concrete tanks are in a barrel room, which is maintained at 56, 57 degrees. So the ferment's very cold. It takes a long time, and that thermal mass of the concrete keeps a very stable temperature. So there's no ups and downs of the temperature. It's like freight train on smooth rails, moving slowly. And so the conical shape, maybe due to the Earth's rotation around the sun or some sort of Coriolis effect, like seems to, or maybe the positive or negative charge of the concrete, however that might be, seems to like lift up the lees. So the dead skin, the skin particles of the grapes, not my hands, I swear, these like, and it helps create really creamy, round, it's something like be like stirring the lees in a barrel, but you're not forced to have the barrel notes with it. And it helps loft all that up. So I like the result. You get kind of a wide mid palate from that.
And that's, I think, the thing that for me separates Josephine maybe from the Oakville Sauvignon Blanc that we make is the texture and the width with this Josephine. There's a creaminess that I think comes maybe combination of the concrete and the French oak, but I think the concrete tank is a really nice addition that we've had in the last couple of years. Yeah, no, it's an important aspect of it. The Oakville Sauvignon Blanc that's out in the world, about 80% of that is fermented in a stainless steel tank, or many small stainless steel tanks. And they tend to like have racy, zippy tones to them. They maintain acidity and focus, but they don't so much build side weight or textural depth. I like them a lot because they're fresh and lean. The concrete definitely like builds out more side weight.
the question from my wife about the maestro. Giovanni Salviante is the master at making these amphora in Italy, and it was fun to hang out with him.
Well, tell him about Giovanni. What's his?
Giovanni's. We met Giovanni. It was a long time ago. I think he's still making the amphoras. We have 6 amphoras. I believe that 5 of them were made by Giovanni, and 1 of them was made by his protege. And so the 5 that Giovanni made are, of course, better. They're made by the master. And each of the amphoras has its own personality, and it's very consistent. I've named them after different famous ceramicists. And so it's fun. Many of you have been to the winery, and you can come back on tour and see that. My team has numbered them. So when I say, can you go stir Volkos, they know that's number 5. Macular degeneration, and he has very limited vision. He's also apparently nearly deaf. Listens to opera music at like 12,000 decibels in a very tight, cramped basement of this foundry that's making clay goods. And most of their business is making. If you've been to Florence, the tiles on the Duomo's roof and the floor are made by the Minetti family. But
I'd like to apologize. I think they're losing signal a fair amount in this room with our internet. So.
Oh, country. We're in the country.
Uh-oh.
I always forget that we're in a 21st century modern world. But I am always reminded with the connectivity. Sometimes we're in the country.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like my phone has issues with the internet here.
Somebody was asking about the winery you visited in Italy, that name again?
Fontoti. Yeah, so the winery is in, I believe it's in Panzano, between Siena and Florence, and the name of the winery is Fontoti. And they make a wine that's only aged in the amphora, and it's called the Dino.
John Horn wanted you to talk a little bit about the 18 versus the 19, Josephine, the differences.
Yeah. It's kind of fascinating. It's a very vintage-driven wine, like all our wines. My job is to try to capture all the best aspects of the vintage, and then downplay the worst parts. It's a little bit like having kids. You might have a kid that's like great at sports or something like that, and you encourage that and get them all the lessons and all the stuff, and you don't worry so much about the spelling bee with that kid, right? And so different vintages have different skills, and your job as the parent of the vintage is to try to find the beauty in that and run with that and hope that be its best. 2018 vintage was a cooler vintage, which tends to be good for white wines, I feel like, because we have more hang time. So the grapes, before they become fully phenolically ripe, and phenolic ripeness is sugars accelerating, acids dropping, and then you have skin tannins rounding and ripening. And you know that when you taste it, you go to the store and the guy's carving up a melon. The overripe melon is slimy. It doesn't have a good texture for your mouth. And you think, well, it has a lot of flavor density, but I couldn't get it home without it breaking open. It'll be certainly rotten by tomorrow's breakfast. Whereas the underripe melon's crunchy and hard, and there's no flavor density. The flavor density is a little bit like sugar content. But the perfectly ripe melon has a nice balance. There's a little bit of tooth, a little bit of give back to your mouth parts, nice flavor density, zippy acid. So all those things kind of come together. So that's this phenolic ripeness of the grapes happen hopefully sometime in mid-October. If the white grapes, instead of ripening in mid-August, ripen in early September, we've simply made an extra 2 weeks of time for those grapes to absorb some of their sense of place. We have some of the world's best vineyards, and so if we can slow down the ripening in the Sauvignon Blanc and let it ripen later, so that it comes to its fullness of that flavor density, that perfect melon aspect later in the season, it has 2 more weeks of soaking up oakville, and then when we put that in the bottle and deliver it to you, John, you'd have a wine that has more oakville in it. So that's a fantastic thing. And with the white grapes, we're never up against the end of the season, so it's always a nice thing. I actually try to hang a little bit more fruit on our Sauvignon Blanc vines to slow down the ripening, so that we can pick them later and have a higher quality grape by having grown more grapes. It helps slow down the ripening. So the 18 vintage had that in spades. So the nice, cool, slow, even season, and the white wines from 2018 were fantastic. Like right out of the gate, big fan of those wines. Whereas the 19s was a little bit warmer. The picking was about a week earlier than 18. And the 19 vintage for reds is like so off the charts, it's ridiculous. Usually red grapes and white grapes don't share the same benefits of the vintage. So the 19s, therefore, from a winemaking perspective, would therefore be suspect. Mm-hmm. You'd be like, well, if it's such a fantastic red grape vintage, then the whites must not be all that. And I actually think that we outperformed the 18s with the 19s. Yeah. No idea how we did that. But I think maybe it's that too. And the 19s provided both of them in spades. If you taste the 18 Josephine and the 19 Josephine side by side, right now I think I'd prefer the 18 Josephine in that it has had a full year after bottling to expand itself and they're fully ready to go. And I think that before we release a wine, I always tasted the wine, oftentimes with Carey and Tom, to try to detect. But the 19 right now against 18, I'd prefer the 18. Will the 19 be a better wine in the long term? I think it will be. It has, there's a little bit more textural tannin. Tannin sounds like a bad thing, but there's tannin quality, and I feel like the tannin quality in the 19s is superior to the more easygoing 18s. So I think the 19 will be a specialer wine that will hold up longer. The 18 is more ready to go now. If I was going to drink Josephine today, I'd pull open an 18 if I still had any. I'd drink it all. That's why you have to buy a bunch. But the 19 is a
question about somebody wanting to open the 2016 for Easter dinner and wondering, what you think of, having those 2, 3, 4-year-old Josephines.
I actually personally opened a 16.
Did you?
Recently, in the last couple months.
How was it?
It was great. It's perks of working in a winery is you get access to the wines, and we're very lucky in that we get certain times a year employee wine. And I, in my box, received a 2016 Josephine, and I opened it up. Didn't know, honestly, I didn't really look at the vintages. I assumed it was the 2018. Drank it. It was great. It still had that nice kind of freshness to it that I think is a worry when you're aging a white wine, but it was great. And then I only realized it was a 16 when I was recycling it.
Yeah.
And so I would say open it, drink it, enjoy it. But I mean, I would say.
Yeah, I think that those the kind of spritier, fresher tones of like lemon will become more white peach juice. You're gonna the edgier acids are gonna soften and round. Mm-hmm. So as you age these wines, and this is a Sauvignon Blanc that's worthy of aging. It's not Montrachet or something like this, but it's something that if you had a bottle that had a couple of years age on it, you'd find it to be enjoyable and worthy of serving your guests on a special occasion.
Cool. So Peter, I've got a couple of questions. So we talked about the concrete, we talked about the French oak, and then we'd also talked about the
acacia wood. As Americans, we think of acacia as being this kind of an invasive species out here on the West Coast that makes a yellow blossom. Mm-hmm. And I'm told that it's actually what we would call black locust, that the French call acacia, which makes sense in that the staves of the acacia barrels are just as wide as an oak barrel stave would be. So to have an acacia tree big enough to make an entire barrel of what we think of as acacia would be like ridiculous, because acacia out here, it tends to have like inch diameter branches, not 6-inch diameter branches. So what we call acacia is apparently black locust. Maybe my Cooper friends that might be chiming in here could help us out with that, or say that I'm totally wrong. But my belief is that acacia is essentially what we call black locust. Mm-hmm. It's a different wood than oak, obviously. In the idea of using oak barrels for wine improvement or wine aging to the point of augmenting the wines and making them tastier, mm-hmm. is something that's actually relatively recent. In ancient days, people used barrels of all sorts of wood. In California in the 50s and 60s and 70s, redwood was used because of what was available. and it was flexible and soft, and you could cooper a huge redwood tank. In making balsamic vinegar, it's traditionally used juniper wood, cherry wood. So the history of different woods is, it's not scary that people use acacia wood to make barrels. We do have 2 acacia barrels that we use only in the making of Sauvignon Blanc. And I use them in the benefit of them to me is that the wine almost has a slight green tinge to it as it comes out of those barrels, as opposed to an older French oak barrel tends to give the wine a kind of a dried straw color tone. And in the bottle, it looks oak aged, and I don't really prefer that. The green tinge of the acacia barrel is, to me, the flavor is fine, but not miraculous. But the color tone helps offset. One acacia barrel will offset the color tone of about 10 French oak barrels and neutralize that kind of dried straw appeal, or like kind of a duck blind kind of look to the wine, and freshen it. So that so much of what, as sighted people that can see, those of you that are watching us, that's you. People that we pull a lot of information from what we see. And so when you look at something, you make assumptions about what it's going to be. With red wine, and it's very orange on the rim, or has sediment in it, or is dark and inky and opaque. You make different assumptions about the flavor density and the power of the wine that you're going to taste. And with white wine, I feel like the visual appeal of the wine has a big impact on how you think the wine's going to perform for you aromatically and flavor density wise. And so I don't, since I'm not a fan of, I'd like the oak barrels, again, very seasoned, they create some of these nutmeg and different spice notes that bring in that little creme brulee swirl. But you know, maybe like a blanched almond, maybe some brioche notes, but they're all very subsidiary to everything else going on in the wine. And so my idea would be that when you look at the bottle of wine, when you look at your glass of wine, you wouldn't be keyed off that there's going to be oak notes, so that when you experience the oak notes, they are a delightful surprise instead of something that's overtly destroying the wine. And so the acacia wood hypothetically helps offset the color tone. In the case of the 2019 Josephine, both of my acacia barrels didn't rise to the occasion texturally of being in the Josephine, and so they're not. So the 2019 Josephine actually doesn't involve either of the
Well, that's something I was
barrels.
wondering, because I've always seen acacia on the notes from you, and I write the tasting notes, and we didn't see any this year. So
So in tasting those 2 barrels, they just didn't. Either my set of white oak barrels has aged enough that they're no longer deploying so much hideous dark straw color to the wine, and so I don't need as much acacia. Or the acacia is also aged too, and then maybe it's not giving as much green bounce to the color spectrum, so it's no longer quite as useful. Or the vintage didn't require it. But they were so delightful and so useful and wonderful in the oak bottling. So it's about being flexible and having lots of different voices. And you can swirl those up, bring them together, put them together into pieces to create the wines.
And another question I was just thinking of, this is kind of separate from the materials that we're using, but as a winemaker, when you're making a white wine versus a red wine, it's a Sunday versus Thursday, it's a black label day. What are the things that you kind of go into that day blending or sampling or tasting that wine?
Thanks, Carey. The working on the white wines is such a refreshing treat. So we'll pick those we'll pick the Sauvignon Blanc grapes in mid-August into early September, and then we get full force into the red harvest. And the white juices are just fermenting along. We ferment those at 55, 54 degrees, very cool. So they're just kind of petering along. Takes months to complete the fermentation. And so they're still sweet during that phase. And when I'm tasting red grapes all day and they're not yet ripe and they taste a little bit like green beans or asparagus and like rustic tannins, and I'm looking for ripeness, it's nice to come back to the cellar and refresh the palate with some crisp and lively Sauvignon Blanc that has nice acidity, a little bit of sweetness, kind of cleans the palate. And then during the harvest, when I'm making red wines and I'm tasting those red fermenters multiple times a day and trying to detect, are we increasing the volume and richness of those wines? There are the tannins smoothing and rounding, what's going on. Tasting, hundreds of tanks multiple times a day. It's quite a bit of palate load in terms of tannin and structure. They're very young wines. They can be pretty aggressive. And actually to have a tank or a vessel or an amphora or a barrel of Sauvignon Blanc to occasionally go taste really helps like reset the pleasure of winemaking. Making the red wines can be a little bit, can be a lot. And so having the white wine there to try to remind us about the freshness and beauty of the vintage. And it also helps us remember what the summer was like when we're crafting the wine. So I can kind of start feeling what the vintage was like. My job is to really try to provide a bottle of wine that is a time capsule back to that vintage. So if I can, the Sauvignon Blanc is such a nice mirror of exactly what the summer was like.
To be helpful.
Yeah, it's kind of helpful to like understand what was it that the red wine was trying to say before it became, the Hulk. Yeah, and so it's a little bit nice to kind of have a.
Okay, well, I guess maybe if you guys have any last minute questions, let us know. While you're coming up with some questions, I just have a couple things to say because that's what I'm here for. Just wanted to remind everyone we're doing $1 ground shipping and $25 2-day shipping on any purchase of 4 bottles or more. But just I think everyone's buying everything online these days, and so just be wary if you're shipping ground. There could be some shipping delays. So if you live on the East Coast and it usually takes about 7 days to get something, it could take 10 to 12 days. So just keep that in mind when you're ordering our wines, especially because we are doing a full month's worth of virtual tastings like this, which brings me to my next point, which is that we do have a tasting every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific time, so 7 p.m. Eastern, and wherever you fall in the middle there. So join us on YouTube, which is where questions, email Tom, it's tom@trimblewines.com, or Carey, Carey @trimblewines, or just respond to any of the emails you get because that's coming from me. And we can kind of help you sort out your shipment. But definitely take a look at the wines that we have coming up in those next few tastings so you can get them in time. You want to make sure if you can't drink something else, definitely drink Trimble when you're watching these tastings. So that's that. And then, so that next Thursday, our 2015 single vineyard Cabernet Sauvignon tasting is next week.
It's going to be fantastic.
It's going to be a nice, I think, breakdown of just what our single vineyard program is all about.
We'll talk about the 2015 vintage,
which is a great vintage,
and then our three signature vineyards: Fortuna, Amenus, and Medina.
It's rare that as a team.
Lori Cook is very upset.
Really? Thanks, Lori.
2015 was a really exciting, we call it the Goldilocks vintage.
Thank you.
And it's rare that as a team we really sit down and kind of taste through the different vineyards kind of year after year. So I'm excited personally just to be able to kind of taste through see the differences between our Amenus vineyard in Calistoga and our hillside Leopoldina vineyard versus our Valley Floor Fortuna vineyard. So if you haven't ordered wine for that yet, definitely do so today or tomorrow.
Would that be in time?
If you do 2-day $25 2-day is pretty good.
The 15 vintage is magic. So really this is going to be a great tasting.
And it's in a nice kind of sweet spot right now, I think, tasting wise. So definitely. I
can't wait to goosebumps to open those bottles with you.
We're excited about the tasting, but we're also excited about the.
And then what's after that?
After that, we have a Merlot tasting.
That's fun. Yeah. I was up in the winemaker's vault and looked at what I have up there.
Yeah.
And I have a 2012, 2013, 2014, and 2016 Fortuna Merlot.
Yeah.
So I'm planning to open that set of 4. And I think there was a 2002 or 2007 up there. So we'll do something from the Wayback Machine.
Sure.
So we'll taste, but we're going to definitely taste the 12, 13, 14, and 16 Merlots
Merlot,
2 weeks from now.
We are a cab house, and of course, our Cabernet Sauvignons are.
Next week is single vineyards.
Next week is single. We're talking about the last tasting of the month. This is the 30th, I believe. That's a Thursday. Merlot is probably one of my favorite wines in the Napa Valley.
Yeah.
I love it. It's
Right.
probably my go-to if I had to pick a wine from my stash, it'd be a Turnbull Merlot.
Yeah.
Not that really means anything.
The Turnbull Merlot is well respected. The word on the street is it's a cab lover's Merlot, but the fine folks over at Dominus, who of course the family there owns the famous Merlot producer from Bordeaux, Petrus.
Mm-hmm.
They've once upon a time I recall them mentioning to our awesome owner that our Merlot was their favorite Merlot in America.
Whoa.
Some qualified comments, I think, from people that know the best about Merlot on the planet.
That's on April 30th, so it's the last tasting of April. So if you guys are curious to learn more about these tastings, go to our website, turnbullwines.com. It's on the events tab on our website, and you'll see it's our April calendar. There's a nice picture of Peter drinking a glass of red wine next to it.
Really?
it's your headshot that we
double
use,
chin and everything.
It's a great photo, but that's on our website, so you can look at that for more details. And as always, you can call us, email us if you have any questions there. And then finally, for me, I just wanted to mention if you are local and wanted to pick up your wine or do some kind of curbside ordering, we are open for that. We just want to know ahead of time if you're coming in to pick up some wine. So you can arrange that through Tom or call us. All that information is on our website. That's it for me. Tom, do you have anything?
Darren Marvin says he loves you.
That's my mom.
Best daughter.
Thank
I
you.
think you should know that.
Thank you, Mom. Happy birthday. Well, I think that's it from us. We're going to do a little music outro.
Nice.
I think tonight we're streaming.
Engaging, and it's a good diversion. And we can all gather around the computer, the TV screen. On our end, it's a camera and a microphone. I want to thank Tom and Carey for putting this all together and bringing us together, and you for bothering to check in with how we're doing. And we care about you deeply and wish you health and wellness and safety. And we're all going to get through this together. And I'm drinking a little bit more, and I think from what I'm hearing, everybody is. So don't feel too bad about that. And hopefully that'll be one of the things that we take out of this. It'll be no more handshaking, but drinking more. And then we're all going to be fine. So anyways, cheers to all of you. Thanks for joining us. Looking forward to meeting up with you next week. And as ever, if you have any questions that I didn't answer, I'm just Peter at turnbullwines.com. And let me know what you're thinking. And we're just busy working in the vineyard and the cellar, but we're here every day. So cheers to you, and be well and safe.
Thank you.
What are we going to listen to, Carey?
Some people want a pinball outro next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're listening to
What do we got?
I actually can't say their name on camera, but Star Effer.
Oh yeah, this is a great song.
It's a good song. Enjoy it.
I love this song.
They changed their name to Pyramid.
Did they really?
3Ds back in like 2011.
Oh.
But no one knew who they were, so they
went
back to.
Yeah, they were originally Star. And then they changed it to be like the STKRF, something like that.
This was like
2008,
2009.
This is Ronald Gregory, or what is this called?
Yeah, Ronald Gregory Erickson.
Ronald Gregory Erickson. It's a good song.
Yeah.
Everyone does, keeping us going and entertaining us in these strange and turbulent times. So cheers to everybody. UFC is going to be back at it. They've hired an island or something to set up shop on. They're trying to get
baseball going. Did you know that?
No, the guy that owns the UFC said that UFC was going to be the most watched sport in 2020, and he was totally right.
I actually did go see a live UFC match.
Did you? Nice.
Before all this happened, we think this is in February. Yeah, this was.
Oh, is the name of the band that?
Yes, the name of the band is Star. You can look them up.
Are we getting blocked now?
Is the name of the band. STRFKR. I'll let you.
Yeah. Anyways, to baseball, basketball, UFC, all those guys.
And it is